Um, what I'm saying, what we're talking about is the idea of a good tree bringing forth fruit and a corrupt tree being unable to bring forth fruit, and how it relates to us in our everyday lives. And we're talking about what Jesus meant when he talked about false prophets coming in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are raven wolves. Um, Jesus is talking about the exterior appearing to be something that is desirable. It's like someone who's all dressed up, but they have what we call a dark heart, or rotten personality. When he talks about the sheep's clothing, we are talking about people who appear to be kind and following the principles of the kingdom, and loving Jesus, and want you to be where they are, but inwardly they are looking for things that's going to ingratiate them, are going to enhance them, be it financially or whether it is personally, in terms of their attitude or personality, their desires for power. Um, then now we're talking about the idea of labeling. Now, see, if you label something, then that's how you view it.
Oh, yeah.
So if you label it, like for example, the woman at the well, if Jesus had said to her, yes, you've had 5 husbands and the one you're with is not yours, and that means that you are an adulterer, or that means that you are a whore, that whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If Jesus had labeled her that way, then her attitude would have been totally different in relationship to him, because she would have seen how he's looking at her. He was looking at her through eyes of disgrace, as opposed to looking at her based upon who she is as a person. This coming to the well in the heat of the day means that you don't want to be with anyone else because you're ashamed of it. The conversation that they had points to the desires of our heart in terms of worship. In our everyday lives, as difficult as it may be, um, it is better to call a Mitch McConnell evil than it is to call him a racist. If you continue to look at him as a racist, that's how you will continually see him. But if love covers a multitude of entanglements, then the way we see him must be expressed as opposed to the way we are seeing him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what am I saying? What is the difference between saying that labeling someone as being evil and labeling someone as being evil and labeling someone as being a racist? What is the difference between the two? There is a major difference between the two. Um, the difference is that evilness deals with the idea of being unright.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So if we deal with it from the basis of him being unripened, then what does that say? It says that he has the potential to be ripened. But if we deal with it as a racist, and that's how we see it, a leopard doesn't change his stripes. And that's how we see race. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Evan?
So what does unright means?
I'm gonna get into that in a moment.
Okay.
Okay. So we have to be very, very cautious of how we reference people. Um, the now, if our expectation is for people's heart to change based upon our desires for enlightenment, then we have to be careful how we speak about them and to them. It's no different than labeling your child as being stupid. If you label your child as being stupid, what is your child gonna do?
Be stupid.
Yeah.
Or act
Well,
stupid.
act stupid, because those are the eyes that you're viewing him with. So unripeness involves all the isms. It doesn't matter whether you are a racist or a manipulative preacher. Both of them are unripe.
Right.
You see what I'm talking about? There is no difference in being a staunch white nationalist or a moderate Democrat than it is being a preacher who wants a $63 million plane. All of it is unright.
Mm-hmm.
All of it is. And when I referenced Martin Luther King and the moderate, when he talked about the danger of moderates to our journey, when he talked about that, I think he saw the picture, but he did not see it clear enough to deal with it from a spiritual perspective as we see it now. But at least the foundation is laid to be able to deal with it. So what are we talking about when we talk about the fruit? By the fruit you shall know them. If we are talking about, we will know those who surround us or those who we interact with by virtue of the of what they show us, their attitude, their conversation, their actions, how they respond to adversity. If we are saying that, right,
Mm-hmm.
then that also applies to us.
Yeah.
How we respond will show what fruit we have borne, right?
Yeah.
It shows our rightness or unrightness or in between, because some things are partially right. When I talk about our attitude of being threatening, when I talk in terms of our circumstances at work is adversarial, and as opposed, rather than look at it as an opportunity that the Creator has given us for the purpose of being ripened, we look at it as, why me? We look at it as, they don't like me. Now what we've done is punch holes in that thing that covers us, and now all of these adversary thoughts seep in. Because what do? If you don't like me, the next thing is you start creating scenarios of how to deal with the person who doesn't like you, of how to avoid the person who doesn't like you, as opposed to saying, what am I to learn from this, and being in that person's presence in a positive spiritual way, which means that that person has opportunity to be ripened, because if you look at the tree, when one fruit on the tree is ripened, then the gases from that fruit begin to speed up the other unripened fruit, so it can be ripened as well.
Ruined all my onions.
Huh?
Ruined all my onions.
Oh.
I had too many of them together, and they all went bad really quickly, and I couldn't understand why. And aside from getting the temperature wrong, they were all together, and the gas just all sprouted.
If you move, why do you think people take dead leaves off a flower?
Mm-hmm.
You see?
So, yeah.
Because of the same thing. We don't look at it that way. We see it as just dying. We see it where all these onions were bad from the beginning, as opposed to when we see the first onion going, remove it, as opposed to leaving it there. Why? Because suppose beneath the surface of that onion was rot anyway, and you didn't know it because you couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Now that rot spreads to one onion, then the next one, and then exponentially all of them. Reverse that. The onion is ripened and the others are not. Then that gas flows and all of them become ripe. It's like bananas that you leave on the counter,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? Okay, Evelyn?
Okay. I was thinking about how you saying all these situations. You want some water or something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm thinking about how all these situations come to us, the people that comes to us. But aren't those thoughts that come to us so we can deal with what we need to deal with?
Yes.
Those are external things that are, you,
This is what you're explaining.
okay,
They will come to a sheep's clothing, but they're raven wolves inside.
Okay.
So those thoughts come to us so we can deal with what's inside of us.
thank you.
Yeah. So, however, if we throw a pity party, then we never grow beyond that. We say it all the time. This is going to continue to happen to you until you deal with it. Do we not? All the time. One of the things that I was talking to somebody last week, and they were talking about some adversarial things in their life, and one of the questions I raised was, out of all of the adversarial things in your life, have you looked in the mirror to see if you're drawing them to you? What about you? What about your attitude? If adversarial circumstances are continuously coming to you, then ask yourself why. What is it that you need to deal with in order for those things to be ripened? They're coming to you because you need to be ripened, or they're coming to you because you need to be a positive force in someone else's life. They're never coming to you for you to be destroyed. They're never coming to you for you to be rotten. Never. The things, the fruit that becomes rotten in relationship to what we're talking about, the way it becomes rotten, if we continue to dwell on how we're going to get back at someone, or if we continue to dwell on how someone else feels about us, now we go into a state of depression, now we get angry at everybody around us, and the very person or who we see the circumstance through, the very person who brought the circumstances into our lives, say nothing to them, but everybody else get cussed out, except that one person.
Mm.
So why does that happen? Either we are afraid to say something to that person, or we're afraid to embrace that we need to deal with it. You cannot deal with anything that is antagonizing you until you embrace it. Admit it. That's what embrace I'm talking about. I admit this thing is bothering me, and I know it's not here to destroy me, so I need to deal with it. If you can do it, if you don't know how, then just admit that it's happening and desire it to be dealt with. Dealing with it doesn't mean it disappears. Dealing with it means that your emotions towards it changes. Any questions about that? What I mean by that? Your attitude changes.
Okay.
You have this adversarial relationship, and you're trying to figure out why. You can't figure it out. I'm not. I check myself. There's nothing that I'm doing. So why is this happening? You don't know the reason. So your attitude towards it changes. Regardless of what happens, I am going to maintain who I am. Got it? I'm not going to let that change. We call it being the bigger person.
Okay.
And really, that's what it actually is. Recognizing how large you are in relationship to the minute issue that you're facing. Because there is no issue that you face that's larger than you. None. If we are the universe and the universe is us, then there is nothing that can be beyond our capabilities to deal with. Now, if it is someone, and I've been using that work analogy, right? If that is the case, then it could very well be because they're jealous. Jealous because of the proficiency with which you work. It could very well be that. There are people who are jealous because they can't do something as well as you. And if you recognize that they can't, help them. Not like in your face helping them. It's almost like someone cannot, let me look at, someone cannot find policies as it relates to real estate licensing, right? Mm-hmm. But you can with 2 clicks. So how do you help that person when that person doesn't like you, or you perceive them as not liking you, and that perception shows you that it's jealousy? How do you help that person who will not come to you and won't even speak to you? The next time you get a question about policy, you go to that person and say, I need your help. And I'm looking for this policy thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then you use their computer to do it while they're watching you. And you do need their help. You're not lying. Mm-hmm. You need their help to fix them. Does that make sense?
So you address it in a flip the script type
That's
situation.
That's it. Very positive. That's it.
And if I may say, that process for which you're talking about in saying how we're bigger than the world and things like that, and how to address those situations, is that then us actually working on our inner selves, and therefore it affects the fruits that actually come out.
Absolutely.
So everything we're talking about internal in terms of, well, whatever we talk about, what we're doing to ourselves or working past certain things, that's working towards that quote unquote evil turning into good. And it's also very important when you were talking about the judging part, that the reason why you also don't want to judge people, as you judge people, you judge yourself, or we judge ourselves. And in doing that, we then do not give our chances the opportunity or allow ourselves to change as well, because we're judging everyone else and pegging them as being something, and so we're saying that that's who they are and not allowing them to change.
And that in itself, that's it in a nutshell. So what do we do about that, right? If we don't help them, we are hindering them.
Them or you?
Both. Because you can't hinder me without hindering yourself.
Right.
Whatever you do to hurt me, you're also hurting yourself. You may not see it that way. Now, there is a difference in persecution and prosecution. Mm. Sometimes the universe prosecutes you because of what you have, because of the energy you have directed toward others. Mm-hmm. When others attempt to persecute you, your attitude determines how the universe deals with it. Prosecution does not always end with something negative being said. Prosecution can be helping someone come face to face with their shortcomings.
Which is you.
Yeah.
And then I'm not talking about you personally, yeah. But it's you.
Yeah. If you're talking about me personally, the expression would be different. I know you. So you.
I hear you.
You know, in dealing with your shortcomings, you help people do that. We know it because we say the truth hurts. And we are so afraid of being hurt as opposed to being corrected until we don't take correction well, especially men. think that we could fix everything. And we think that we are right when we're trying to fix it.
Never wrong.
That's right. And when we act as though we're never wrong, we're always wrong.
No, I was literally saying that.
Okay.
Tony was saying amen.
I know, no, he was literally saying we're never wrong. And I'm saying he's right, in the mind, in the mind.
You're right.
But that's something that we don't think about.
You're right.
You know, and I'm watching all of these things transpire, and I'm listening at the people talk about how weak Warren's campaign was, and that's the reason she did not make it, as opposed to the odds were stacked against her because she's a woman. Now, let me tell you, there are two people who go catch hell winning anything in the South. Gay, male, and a woman on a national level. Because we have been indoctrinated to believe that men should be in charge. And men have already messed it up. Well, that's most of what happened to her. That has to change. So how does it change? It changes with me, with my attitude. When my attitude changes, then I don't label her as being weak. I don't label her as being inferior to me in any way whatsoever. I don't do that. And her of whom I'm speaking are females, period. I don't do that. If you do that with females, why is it you don't do it with males? Because you're afraid of them. 9 times out of 10, you don't want them to come back at you. So, can you see how dangerous labels are? Labels, again, labels determine how you see someone. And if labels determine how you see someone, you treat people the way you perceive them to be.
That's true.
And if you treat people the way that you perceive them to be, then how can you say that you are a ripened fruit and bring ripeness to them if your perception of them is no different than your perception of yourself? Does that make sense?
Yes.
How can I make you whole if I don't know what wholeness is? Maybe that's something we need to address. What is wholeness? What does that look like? Because wholeness and rightness are really the same thing. What does wholeness look like? From day one, even before I engaged in this journey of preaching, I believe that if you need someone to make you complete, then you'll never be complete. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
If you are not whole, if you're not complete within yourself, if you don't believe that, then you will bring emptiness to the relationship. The reason people lose their identity in relationship is because they're looking for wholeness in the relationship, even if they don't say it. What is it?
When you talk about wholeness, I'm thinking about balance.
Same thing.
Yeah.
The wholeness for you is not the same as wholeness for me. You don't face the circumstances that I face. You don't interact with the people that I interact with. So wholeness for you is different. If and an example may be that if you were to counsel some of the people that I counsel, or if you knew some of the things that we talked about in counseling, you would see them totally different. that I don't, because that's who I am in terms of what I do right. I'm the one who does it, but you don't do it. And because you don't do it, there is something there that does not allow you to be able to dismiss it for what it is, simple circumstance. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Simple circumstance. Labeling people and pushing them aside because of how you perceive them is no different than trying to do you complain about the speck in your neighbor's eye and not taking the bolt of the rock out of your own? Yeah. Your vision is blurred. So, what did you, Janice? Yeah. Oh, okay. So understand this. When you ask about the fruit, right?
Yes, sir.
The tree that's evil, it's not morally bad. That's not what it's talking about. The tree that's evil, the tree that's unripened, it's not morally bad. It's just not just time to produce it. He said unripened. If it's unripe, it's just not his time. So, that being the case, go ahead.
Say something right quick. The difference from someone who has a green thumb is very good with plants, coming to revive a plant. Just because a plant may not be bearing fruit, or maybe in a sense the leaves browning. It's not getting the proper water, it's not getting the proper sunlight, etc. But that plant can definitely be revived. That's all.
Right. Now, on the heels of that, think about this. Everything that lives begins in darkness. If, in order for it to continue to live, it has to reach for the light. How is it that a seed knows the direction of the light? You see? How does the seed know the direction of the light? What we say is, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, you change. What are we saying? When you figure out that you are beneath the dirt, that seed is covered up, and you cannot produce anything, you will lay in that ground and rot if you don't reach for the light. When you get through wallowing in your self-pity and sorrow and start reaching for the light, that's when change comes. Why is it that when you get into a depressed state, that one of the things you're told, do not be in a dark room? Am I right? Do not isolate yourself. All of these things are speaking to the same principle as this evil tree and the good, evil fruit, evil tree and the good tree, or the ripened tree, right? All of them speaking to the same stuff. So why is it so difficult for us to see this? It's because we're looking through eyes that are dim. When Jesus applied the spirit of, mixed the dirt and put it in the man's eye, I see men as trees. I see men as selfish. I see men creating their own understanding, knowledge. I see men as the way they are in terms of this earthly consciousness. But then when he did it again, he says, now what do you see? He saw clearly, right? Now, if we are caught up and covered by this religious stuff, then we are creating our own ideas about what spirituality is. Example, when I talked about it earlier, if your household is covered by the blood of Jesus, and you are a Christian and you love the Lord and you're on your way to heaven, then how is it that the quote-unquote devil can get in? Think about it. How can it, because you left an opening, right? Guess who that opening is? You. The only devil that can deal with that is you. So, what am I saying? Unripened thoughts, unripened principles, authoritarian principles are unripened principles. As I said earlier, thinking you know everything is an unripened principle. Failure to seek understanding is an unripened principle. And we don't do that in religion. We're not taught to do that. We are not. We are taught to do what I say when I say it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we are taught. I am not the head I am not the head of my household. I'm not the man of my house. I'm the man in the house. Why? Because there are things that we deal